So I thought of you as soon as I woke up today because I saw the news and I was like, oh man. And it was when I woke up. So I'm like, Graham has probably been awake for like 7 hours.
Well, I mean, I woke up early this morning about, 6:30 or so. And when I turned my phone on, it kind of blew up. First of all, I got text from Lee Camp. So Lee Camp was on my show yesterday. And we actually started doing this segment for this new podcast we're going to be doing called Government Secrets. And we talked about Ghislaine Maxwell yesterday, about why she hasn't been arrested and all of that. And then he texted me like, oh my God. Now, that's the first I heard of it was when Lee Camp texted me. And then I went online and my Twitter feed is just completely blown up with everybody going, Graham, they got her, they got her. And I've even reached out to Whitney Webb, who I think she's going live right now. I'm going to try to get her on my show. I'm going to go live later today. It's really, I want to read, Whitney Webb, who's been covering Epstein very thoroughly, even more so than myself. I watched the clip of the basically an indictment or arraignment, I guess, whatever it's called this morning, and it's my question here. That first of all, I'm glad they got her. First of all, just because the victims.
Yeah. And for anyone not in the know, because I don't even think we officially just dropped it. Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested.
Yeah, she was picked up by the FBI in New Hampshire today, and they read her charges this morning. She's been with the enticement of minors. Now, the thing that I want to put in here, reading Whitney Webb's, because Whitney has actually read the whole. I haven't read the actual indictment papers yet. But this is what I just want to read what Whitney said. So, having now read the SDNY indictment of Ghislaine Maxwell, one thing stands out. The charges are mainly for enticing minors to travel to engage in illicit sex acts, specifically with Epstein. And there's also a perjury charge. However, the indictment says Maxwell herself sexually abused the victims, but wasn't charged for that. In other words, they admit she sexually assaulted minors, but is only charged her for enticing minors to travel for abuse by Epstein, not her. Slap on the wrist incoming. That's my question with all of this is, again, I'm glad they arrested Ghislaine Maxwell because she's a monster. I mean, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, settled out of court with her. Maria Farmer, who was interviewed several months ago by Whitney Webb, who I even played. Whitney allowed me to play some of that conversation they had on my show. I talked to Whitney about it on my show about maybe 2 months ago. And I've done some recent videos how this same federal judge, Preska, this woman just is asking for Virginia Roberts' legal team to destroy certain documents. So this is really curious to me how this is going to happen. The thing I was saying, if they arrest Ghislaine Maxwell, it must be because more powerful people are giving her up. So she's either going to, it's the same thing I said when they arrested Epstein a year ago. It's been a year now. Just about. They arrested him middle of July of 19. So they're either.
I was going to say, hasn't it been almost a year since she released that really creepy photo at the In-N-Out? Like wasn't that? Because I feel like that was summer of last year.
That was like late August, September. So Epstein was arrested in July. And I said, he's either going to get a slap on the wrist like he did 10 years ago. And I said, if they deny his bail, he's dead in prison. They denied his bail. On August 8th, they released the 2,000 documents. That next morning is when he was so distraught, he hung himself with a paper T-shirt, and video cameras just miraculously were not working. And the only two people charged up prior to today, Ron, the only two people charged have been the two guards for falling asleep, and going shopping or whatever. So I feel the same way with Ghislaine, like either this is some sort of coordinated thing, because William Barr hasn't done dick about this. This new assistant FBI person that Whitney has talked about. They waited until Bill Barr fired G. Berman. Again, this is from Whitney Webb's Twitter feed. They reportedly arrested her in New Hampshire. They've known where she is the whole time. Yeah, now just get her. Initial arrest.
So then how could this potentially be connected to the firing of Berman? Like where's the potential? Like was there some kind of conflict of interest, or how does that tie in?
That's a great question. And I think that's what we need to really kind of get at here is, obviously, Ghislaine Maxwell is guilty and needs to be prosecuted, but why now? And I think Berman might have been part of the William Barr deliberate blocking of this charging happening. So he needed to get fired, and then because what may come out is that the person who filed these charges did so without the support of Barr. I mean, that's what this could be, because Barr was definitely has been historically, and again, if you read a lot of Whitney's stuff on Mint Press News and now The Last American Vagabond, Barr has definitely been tied into Epstein for a long time, and it's been the way this whole thing works is, since the most powerful people in the world are running a sex trafficking ring for pedophiles, they then, anytime somebody gets arrested or is charged, they always try to, basically through the media and through the courts, try to sort of seal it off like it's just this one bad apple. It's the one creep, it's the, so to distance themselves from the fact that there's no way you can have, the reality is there's no way you can have a multi-billion-dollar international sex trafficking ring without the most powerful people in the world knowing about it. So their whole tactic is going to, if she's either going to get a slap on the wrist, which means she has more power than we are aware of. If she goes to prison, she will die. She will be dead in prison. She'll have a heart attack. She'll slip and fall in a bag of knives, or something like that will happen.
She'll get a hold of a paper T-shirt.
They're very strong.
One of those lethal paper T-shirts that you can hang yourself with it, and it'll look like you were strangled even. That's how powerful they are.
Paper is the most strongest substance on the earth, as we know this.
Very much so. Very much so.
I mean, look right here, Ron. See, that just...
Oh, man. How are your fingers okay? You probably broke one.
Both my fingers are broken and I'm dead.
Jeez.
The video camera's broken, so we'll never know the truth.
I just fell asleep.
Yeah. So the way to step back and to look at all of this is, she's becoming Epstein became a liability for the powerful. Epstein was like middle management. So Les Wexner, as was said by Maria Farmer in her interview with Whitney Webb, is the head of the North American snake for all the sex trafficking. There's an airport in Ohio that, of course, has ties to the airport in Arkansas that the Clintons. So this is some attempt to get people to sort of, oh, we got her, now leave us, shut it up, she's bad.
Well, do you think that's part of the reason why it's taken this long? Because, and this is something to kind of draw a parallel here between what happens with police brutality. One of the things that they do, and this is a systemic, this is by design, whenever they arrest a cop, they always draw out bringing about the actual charges, so that by the time anything is issued or anything goes to court, public opinion is on to something else, because a lot of time has passed and the world does keep spinning. I think in some ways that might have been the same thing they attempted to do here, where it's public outrage has kind of gone in waves. I mean, and thanks to, people like you and Whitney Webb, who have kept on this story adamantly, you've kept it alive. And then, of course, there was the Netflix series that came out that at least kind of kept people aware of this. Mm-hmm. But still, it's I think the rage factor has probably diminished a good bit. So now they're okay, now's our opportunity.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all. This is a great time to drop this, is in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of police brutality protests, in the middle of an economic crisis. Oh, by the way, but I think this is where they are miscalculating, because some of and you were at many of the protests and still are going to protest, myself included, especially that first week of the protests. There was a lot of not just police brutality, but we're done with the whole system. Like, defund police, defund the military. We've both talked about it on our shows. I've talked about it with the Convo Couch. Nobody has seen a Biden 2020 at any of those Black Lives Matter shirts. Like, nobody is excited, and the millennials and Gen Zs that are really leading this charge are like, pfft. And I think Epstein is part of it. I don't think it's a separate, and I think the ruling class and these, the people involved in this horrifying sex trafficking ring want to keep these issues separate, but the people were so frustrated with all of it. The fact, it was funny, at one of the protests I saw this video was this black guy holding a Black Lives Matter sign, and then there's a local news guy. He stands by the get on camera and then turns the sign around. On the back is Epstein didn't kill himself. And it's funny and it's cool, and I'm glad he did that, but to me it's like we all know Epstein didn't kill himself. That happened in front of us. He's the most notorious pedophile that we've ever known about. He's got ties to two presidents, the royal families. The most powerful people in the world. And they did it in front of us. They did it in real time. They just said, oh, and they expect us to just swallow it. And I think it's part of they just want us to just accept that this pedophile who, his black book is filled with the most powerful people in the world. Sorry, he just killed himself. You're never going to hear that. Sorry, and then our black men can just get executed and the cops have a 99% acquittal rate. Sorry, you can't work for 4 months, but you got to pay your rent and we're going to give you $1,200. Like, sorry, I think it's all tied in to just the ruling class is just abusing the whole planet. Look, a country that can bomb 7 countries and kill however many, just 85,000 children are dead in Yemen and nobody cares, is the same country that can put their knee on the neck of a guy for 8 minutes and 46 seconds while he's pleading for his life and asking for his mom, is also the same country that can rape and sell children and cover it up. It's just like, these are monsters in charge.
And it's also the same country where we're on our way to getting our first trillionaire while people are in line for food all of the Great Depression. This is a corporate coup. This is a complete failed state in every matter of the definition. Like, this is not an embellishment. This is definitionally a failed state. And yeah, I think that's just another testament to all this. And did you watch the Netflix series? I know we've talked about this some off mic, and you hadn't watched it last time we talked, but
I haven't watched it yet. I've heard a lot about it, and the thing that I'm so worried it's going to make me furious. But correct me if I'm wrong. It's good the victims get a voice. I'm glad the victims get a voice.
Yes,
and they don't go into Les Wexner. They don't go into the Clintons. They just kind of whitewash that and say ties or maybe or stuff like that. Am I wrong?
No, that's accurate. They kind of brush a couple things, and that's why I've not wanted to be overly because they do give a voice to the victims, and that's good. But they also don't really scratch underneath the surface of some of the stuff the victims say.
Yeah,
they don't sugarcoat his creepiness as an individual.
Right.
Which is good, sure, but they don't take a step deeper and be like, well, what are these bigger connections? They're just like, he just had all this money.
Yeah.
He had all this money and people wondered he was just a creepy dude in Florida with money. And then the victims will say things like, yes, this was trafficking. I was trafficked. There was trafficking. This was a ring. They would use that verbiage. And then they would just sort of leave it there. It's like the victims would say it, but then the documentary would just kind of keep going and talk to other people. And that was that. And so, I didn't not appreciate the fact that it's there and that it's probably, expanding this story to a bigger audience. But Yeah, it definitely kind of stayed on the surface in many ways.
That's part of their tactic, Ron, is to control the overall narrative. And so people, their first like going deep on Epstein is that Netflix doc. Okay, great. Again, I'm so glad the victims got a voice, but this is something that the victims have said. I mean, this is something, again, going back to Maria Farmer, her 3-hour conversation with Whitney Webb, is she came out in the 90s and said, I was trafficked. And the head of the FBI at the time, appointed by Bill Clinton, Judge Free, who also was appointed by Penn State University to do an independent investigation of Jerry Sandusky.
Really?
Weird coincidence. Isn't that a weird coincidence?
Dude, I think you've told me that before, and I kind of, oh, jeez, that's okay.
It's hard to go. It's hard.
It's so gross.
It's so awful. But again, if you look at the Free report, which is the report that Penn State did, so they showed that Joe Paterno, who had already passed away, and some administrators knew about Sandusky and did nothing. Right?
Yeah.
But that's awful, and that's a crime, and I'm glad that came forward. But it very clearly sealed off anything else. And so it's just sort of like, Paterno should have done more. And one of the things that my friend Eric Oldenburg, a child crimes investigator, said to me personally, I was working in Phoenix in 2011 when that all came out, and he was, at the time, he's retired now, he was an active child crimes investigator, finding online pedophile rings and horrifying shit like that. He goes, Graham, Sandusky was probably getting kids for alumni. That's his professional opinion. That's not a tinfoil hat online conspiracy guy. That's a professional investigator. So when you hear that and you see the tactic is always the same, seal it off, Sandusky, one bad guy. We're not getting how Sandusky was arrested in 1998, and the courts in Pennsylvania did nothing. So again, the Netflix doc, these victims say this stuff, and then they don't go, how did he get his money? Well,
right.
He got his money because it was what he was doing. I mean, Acosta said he was told to back off in 2009 because he had ties to the CIA. And that's how you get what we're hearing from all the victims, that's what he would do. He would bring these powerful men in. He would, we'll offer you a massage. And then a child would perform sex acts. They'd videotape it. And Epstein would say, now I got you on tape. And then those people would just suddenly invest in his fake hedge fund. I mean, like, this can't operate. And to tie this all in, you brought up Jeff Bezos, right? Who's going to become the world's first trillionaire. So part of why I don't think the people, and I'm glad the activists and the masses are like waking up to all of this, because so let's look at Jeff Bezos, right? So he fired Chris Smalls, who was organizing a strike, a union. He was trying to unionize because Bezos was forcing his employees to work in dangerous conditions. And Chris Smalls was just like, I don't want me and my friends to die from COVID. And we just want hazard pay and protective gear and this, that, and other. So that's
and he was sending people with COVID home. And he was saying, hey, when someone has COVID, you need to fucking tell us.
Yes.
I mean, just basic human decency was, and that's the thing that, and I know, like, you've said this on your show, I've said this on my show. All the things these workers are asking for are things they should not have to ask for. These are things that should be given to a worker who's a human being. And these are just obvious things. And it's just criminal what the corporate class is doing.
But let's tie it all in, which is all accurate. And I'm glad to see there was protesters outside of his Washington, D.C. home with a guillotine.
Yeah.
So this is a video I did. Ghislaine Maxwell was at several of Jeff Bezos' writer retreats, these whatever creepy artist retreats. So
I bet there is nothing worth reading in those fucking things. A writer's retreat organized by Jeff Bezos. What the? It's just going to be a bunch of haikus like, I love money. Yeah. I really, really love it. Money. It is great. That's it. That's it. Every haiku is just going to be, there's nothing worth reading at any of those retreats. I promise.
People are line items as, but this, again, this just shows the whole, why I think people are waking up. that the Black Lives Matter protests and the systemic racism is very much tied in to this class structure where workers are, and not to diminish or minimize the racism in this country. It's awful. We have brutal racism. We have people, black men, literally getting lynched in the year 2020. We have, but the same way that the corruption and it's hidden in the same way, it's like they've kept hidden that white nationalists and KKK members have made it to high-ranking officials within our government, within the police department. It's the same way like these pedophiles have made it into high levels of government. These pedophiles have made it into the White House. I mean, Trump and Bill Clinton have all these ties to Epstein, and the fact that Trump appointed Acosta, who gave him the sweetheart deal. Trump appointed William Barr, who's done nothing. And I think it's going to come out that Barr really didn't want this arrest to happen, or they finally just said, somebody up high, Trump said she's a liability, arrest her, and then let's make sure she, slips on a bar of soap or whatever. So the structure of the corruption, the structure of the systemic racism is the same structure that allows a multi-billionaire global sex trafficking ring to happen, that allows us to bomb everybody and not have money for healthcare. It allows a private prison system to exist. It allows cops to get the bulk of the budgets while we don't have money for homeless in schools, and on down the line.
Well, so let me run this by you. So, and I think you should watch the Netflix thing just so you know, like just for the sake of like, okay, a lot of people who aren't really plugged into this stuff, which, you're more plugged into this stuff than, almost I mean, like you and I mean, you're more plugged into this stuff than I am. Like I usually like turn to you guys to kind of get the summaries. In that documentary series, they make it out like they definitely, Ghislaine Maxwell does not come off smelling like a rose at all. Like they definitely make it out like she is the accomplice, and it was just sort of their thing. And so, I mean, this could very well be, okay, so the public who has seen this series, they view her as a fellow bad guy. So, hey, everybody, there's a lot going on. You're pretty distracted, reasonably so. You're worried about making rent. You're worried about everything else. There was another bad guy involved with this, and we got her. Go back to bed. And they're going to try to make sure she doesn't say anything.
I think that's a big part of this. Again, going back to the pattern of sealing it off. So they were hoping Epstein dying in prison would just sort of everyone would go back to sleep. And the mainstream media won't cover this at all. But all of us in the indie media and the whole internet has not let this go. I mean, the internet is like, So
it's just such an unbelievable. And I know we've been saying this, but it's still worth repeating just because of how insane it is. This is like JFK times 10 as far as how ridiculous, unbelievable the official story is. Everyone I was on the phone, you were the first person I texted that morning. And just everybody in my personal life I was on the phone with that day. I was just like, there's no freaking way. And nobody disagreed. Everyone's like, yeah, this is for sure. There's a lot more to this.
We can't. It's all coming, like the masks are all coming off. And Epstein was a big part of that. I mean, the fact that, again, they just killed the guy in jail or extracted him, whatever the thing is. And even that debate, did he hang himself? Did they kill him? Was he extracted and is he still alive? Even that debate is part of a distraction. So guess what we're not talking about? All of the people in the Black Book. All of this, you got to be very careful when you watch the mainstream media's coverage of Epstein. All of it is designed to not ask, why is Bill Clinton not arrested? Why is Hillary Clinton, who was on his plane twice? Bill was on 26 times. The Clintons were at his compound numerous times in New Mexico. Ghislaine Maxwell was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Like, why isn't Trump been? Like, why haven't Joe Biden? Why haven't all of these people been indicted? So this whole, I think part of it is like, they did that right in front of us. Epstein, they just killed him or extracted him, whatever. They just said in front of us. It was it's like, I make the example of like Gary Webb, when he discovered that, he did all this really great investigative journalism for I think either San Jose or Sacramento, I forget which paper, but showing that the government was funneling crack cocaine into America and into specifically black neighborhoods. And then he committed suicide, and the official police report is he shot himself in the head twice. Now that's a message to regular people: sit down, shut up, and don't ask questions. And it feels like everyone's just done. And you take this pandemic, taking everybody's, they can't work, they can't pay their bills, they can't go anywhere. And it's just like everyone's questioning, everything seems like a lie. And this Maxwell, I guarantee you, the official narrative is going to be, we got her, it's done, she's going to jail. Thank you. Go to sleep, folks. And here's another $1,200.
Oh, you think we'll get another $1,200? You're an optimist.
Yeah, I think if because there's going to be, I mean, I'm sorry, man, I'm half tempted to go on if she's in a public trial. I mean, I might get on a plane and go there. Like, I mean, there's going to be people.
Where do you think the trial will be? Will they do it will they do it in New Hampshire where she was arrested, or do you think they'll do it like in New York City? Or
well, since it's the Southern District in New York are the ones prosecuting her, I think she'll be charged there. I think the trial would be happened in where the charges were filed. That's again, I'm not a legal expert, so somebody else can weigh on this better than I can. But my inclination would be, my guess would be that it would be in New York.
If you could ask her one question, what would it be?
What do you think hell's going to be like?
What do you think she'll say? A lot of In-N-Out milkshakes.
Yeah.
I bet they got good dining there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know, because yeah, if she, her father was in Mossad, and when he became not useful to them, then he threw himself off a boat and drowned. So this feels like, too, it could be Mossad and the CIA going, she's not useful anymore. Get rid of her. She might we have no idea what she's been doing these 12 months, where she's been, who she's been talking to, what evidence she has. But
we have no idea how much she knows.
Yeah, she knows.
I mean,
she knows all of it. I mean, she would know so much of it because she was a part of it. I mean, her and Ivana Trump. This is a thing that was said by Maria Farmer and Virginia Roberts, I believe, as well. Might have been Virginia Roberts, but they said that Ivana Trump and Ghislaine would go around and recruit young girls to be Victoria's Secret models. I mean, that's the thing that they did. And so that's another reason why it's like these QAnon mopes that thinks Trump has nothing to do with this, or they're all going to scream, Trump, this is Trump rounding up the bad guys. That's what they think. No, this is Trump trying to seal this off because it's getting close to his house. And this is a distraction to keep out. We won't be, if we're just talking about Ghislaine and the fine tune, and the corporate media will start nitpicking at some stuff so that they won't be talking about Trump and the Clintons and Les Wexner. That Les Wexner is the real hidden bad guy here. He's very wealthy, very powerful. He propped up Epstein. Epstein worked for him. And so he's the head of the North American snake of this. And there's heads snakes of the snake in other regions. And also, too, let's not forget the Rothschilds, which are the most powerful family in the world, you could argue. And the royal family, I mean, Prince Andrew, if they get too close to the royal family, the royals will give up Prince Andrew. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there. This is now going into conspiracy theory land, but like that Princess Di uncovered the pedophile sex trafficking of the British royal family. Jimmy Savile was had a BBC show for kids and everything.
Wow, I'd not heard that before.
Yeah, there's a lot of suspicious stuff about her death. That she was getting close to that. There's also this, which whenever one of the rich royal kids who's supposedly left the royal family, there's a lot of, and this is all guesswork now. We're not dealing in facts here, but there's a lot of really serious questions about her car accident death. She was still alive after the car accident happened, and then an ambulance just showed up, and then she showed up at the hospital and died, which that can happen after any car accident. But the royal family, they're involved in this too, because Prince Andrew is guilty, as guilty as Ghislaine Maxwell, and he won't stand trial. He gave that ridiculous BBC interview that was such a tactic by the royal family, by Buckingham Palace, to seal this off. And in that interview, tried to say like, oh, I don't know, I barely knew, Jeffrey. It was Ghislaine's plus one, and tried to distance himself from the royal family and distance himself from Ghislaine Maxwell. So the royal family is somewhere involved in this.
Wasn't that interview so bad they like made him stop doing public appearances?
Well, that was it. It was the last.
He was just like, yeah, I barely know him, and he's like, well, why'd you stay at his house for weeks then? Hotels in New York. How am I going to afford that? I'm just a prince.
I didn't know.
Did you know my tear ducts don't work? Fun fact about me: can't get hotels in New York, and I don't sweat like normal people. I don't remember dancing with this person. They were like, this guy, wow, he's saying this.
It was hilarious how bad he was. He literally said he lost his sweat glands in the Falklands War. So he lost his sweat glands in the war. He would never be caught dead in London without a dinner jacket. The night in question, the very night that they have evidence of, that night he distinctly remembers going and getting pizza. Weird, there's no evidence that Prince Andrew went to go get pizza that night. Wouldn't that be a story? Yep, he was. After he knew, after he knew that the reporter was like sticking it to him. She was doing a good job. Usually BBC's pretty soft on the royals. And she was like, well, but you knew Epstein had been, you knew he was guilty. You knew this, and yet you still went back. And he's like, oh, I'm probably just too honorable of a man. I was like, wow. Lost his sweat glands in the war. Wouldn't be caught dead without a dinner jacket in London at some nightclub. Pizza, and too honorable.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then he claims like he didn't remember meeting. Was it Virginia Roberts, or like he didn't remember? And then there's a picture of them, and he has his arm around her, and he's just like, that's.
He even said in that interview, go back and watch. He's like, is that my hand? We don't know.
When you don't have sweat glands, you can't feel your hand either.
Is this my hand, Ron? I don't know. This is a conspiracy that this is my hand. This is somebody else's hand touching my face right now, Ron.
You know how difficult it's been over the years. My friends always do this where they just go, stop hitting yourself, because they know I can't feel my hand because I don't have sweat glands and I can't cry. And I'm like, that this is the thing. You gotta, come on.
I'm so honorable that I'm smacking my own face and not preventing it, but this isn't my hand though. So that's,
guys, if you're gonna mess with me, at least give me my dinner jacket. Show me the dignity I need. Dinner jacket.
Yeah, they're like, okay, his public appearances are done. Like, he's over.
Cut off. You're done. You're done. So, do you have time for one more story?
Sure. Oh, by the way, the over-under on Ghislaine Maxwell hanging herself with a paper T-shirt is 20 days.
20 days?
Yes, 20 days.
All right. I think that's a good one. That's a good one. I would not bet against you. I mean, if you really want to, we can bet like a vegan smoothie or something, but I would not bet against you.
If she's denied bail, then it's over. It's over.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make